You're welcome to the channels of Tapaulho Azul and Super Acadêmico. Today we're going to begin to talk about some themes that can be taught all or uh, both for a channel for children and a channel about discussions over uh, cultural cultural movies, pop culture themes that can please a lot of people. Post. So in this first attempt of have a video in English, I'm going to talk about the timeline of the X-Men movies that were made by Fox, 20th Century Fox, over 20 years, from 2000, the year 2000 to 2021, 2000, 2021. First of all, I have to say that the uh, the movies that are produced about upon comic books have this problem of some adaptation. It's necessary to make the language more available to a wider audience. Since the people that already knows the comic books knows a lot of information, a certain expectation is made, is created over the production of movies about comic books. And I remember well that when this first X-Men movie came to be in the year 2000, there was there were a lot of hype, a lot of expectations about the movie, and some people were pleased and satisfied, and other people not so much. But the important thing is there was the intent to transform one media, one language that was written with image, the comic books to the movies, and that's always problematic because you have to make choices, and some choices don't please everybody, and it's impossible to please everybody, especially when you communicate, you are trying to communicate something that is entertainment on one side, and is also a message that not everybody gets, right? Uh, bon, I invite you to subscribe to both channels, and hit the bell to get notifications, comments about your thoughts about the movies, and I hope I can reach a wider audience with these videos in English. First of all, the first two movies, the X-Men and X2, X-Men 2, they were very successful, and they came in a time that was a hunger for such movies, and the success of these movies, and also the success of the movies of Spider-Man movies of 2001 and 2003 made possible that we that to the thing we have today, that the uh, Marvel Cinematic Universe to exist, because they saw, the producers, the people of money in Hollywood saw that there were people that were an audience to make money, to make money to them. There was there audience that were available to get this kind of uh, content. And so these two movies were very successful, and they tell the story of these mutants, these people with superpowers that were born with um, some genetic traits that give them the powers that scares them, that fears them, that inflict fears into others, and hate also. One reminder that they were created in a time in the United States where there were a lot of hate, a lot of persecution over people of different types, specifically black people. That in the 60s, in the 1960s, they were suffer a lot of prejudice, a lot of violence also, and so the spirits of this came to be in these uh, fictional characters in these movies too. They centered these movies over the character Wolverine, uh, played by Hugh Jackman in all the movies, and for that thing, maybe did the thing that the movies were too dependent of him. Uh, when in the comics, the, the character Wolverine appears just after, a long time after, and they began to make the comic in the 60s. Wolverine only appears in the 80s, the early 80s. After these two movies, there was this third movie of the X-Men, The Last Stand, that was considered a failure, and it displeased the fans, and displeased a lot of people because they used the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga in a way that nobody liked, especially when she, a so powerful being, gets killed so easily by Wolverine, which creates the arch of the character that carries a lot of guilt for killing her in the movie, and also a lot of nonsense killings of characters like Professor Xavier and Cyclops. In the comics, Jean Grey, the Dark Phoenix, she destroys planets with billions of people, so she carries the guilt for that. And in the movie, she just kills Scott and Professor Xavier. So it's strange that it put that way. Didn't get so good for many people. After that, they produced during the writers' strike the movie X-Men Oranges, Wolverine, which centers again in Wolverine with his past before this first movie. In this case, the great problem was they arranged the movie without professional writers, so it was very inefficient, and they did something that was awful. That is March marked the Fox productions of Mutants movie. Very poor, very displeased was the use of the Deadpool character played by Ryan Reynolds in the way that nobody liked it, not even him. It's weird. Then with these two failures, they reboot the series with X-Men First Class, which passes over the 60s and gets or re-gets the spirit of the first appearance of the X-Men in the comics in the 60s, which was nice and was well received. They use well characters like Professor Xavier and Magneto, and the Hell Club with Sebastian Shaw and Emma. I forgot her name. Um the white queen. but they centered the movie over Mystique. Sorry, a character that first in the other movies were secondary. She's just a psychic villain for Magneto, and she became a central character, being like a sister for Professor Xavier, which doesn't make much sense when you see how she appears and is seen by Professor Xavier. That doesn't make sense. Well, after the success of the X-Men First Class, one thing that's weird in this movie is that they get the characters of different timelines and put together in a movie. For fans that knows things, find it strange, but I think for movie makers they need to make choices that is possible to create a story that is nice for a movie, but sometimes it gets far from the uh, source material, the comics. For example, in this movie, X-Men First Class, there is the appearance of the Havoc character, Alex Summers, who is the brother of Cyclops. But in the comics, Cyclops is the oldest. Cyclops is the oldest brother, and here he is much older than Scott, which you, they will develop this brotherhood relationship in the X-Men Apocalypse. So after the success of X-Men First Class, they produced the Wolverine, and the Wolverine that's a solo movie of Wolverine that uh, the story takes place some time after the last stand, and the character carries the guilt of killing Jean Grey. The story uses the Wolverine storyline, which takes place in Japan. Japan. And it's a good movie. Sometimes doesn't make much sense. The relationship between him and Mariko and the Silver Samurai that in the comics is very different, but they arrange in a way that makes kind of sense in the movie. And in the end of the movie, the post credit scene, they put a cliffhanger for the next movie, the X-Men Days of Future Past, which was a huge success. They were able in this movie to resuscitate the old series with the new series, put together both casts, the cast of the original X-Men and the X-Men First Class, with a jump of 10 years from First Class. First Class is in 1962, and Days of Future Past is 1973, during the end of the Vietnam War. So the movie was a great success. Some things also it's not very faithful to the source material. They adapt a lot of things. They put together some characters that originally is not there. The timeline, in the storyline of Days of Future Past, but it works. They centered again on Wolverine, and it was the character that jumps from time from the future, was the war with the Sentinels, the Sentinels machine, and goes to 73 to stop the Sentinels machine being invented or something like that. With this movie, it was started a new timeline, where the cast of First Class is put to construct a new timeline of X-Men movies, which follows the X-Men Apocalypse, that jumps more 10 years. 73 here is 83, 1983, passing during the 80s, and they use the villain, the character villain, Apocalypse, and it's in the comics is a huge villain. It's a very important villain, But the movie was not well received. People didn't like very much. Although there is great things in the movie, uh, I think, for instance, the the costume of Psylocke is great. It's very faithful to the source material, to the comics. But the the way they brought the new Cyclops and the new Jean Grey, it was strange. And they reuse Angel, né, in this movie, which in the last stand, Angel appears as here the son of a billionaire that makes a cure for mutants, and here he's just a cage fight guy. It doesn't make sense, but okay, you can not expect so much coherence in these movies because they are made to entertain and make money for the producers and for the company. It's it's better, né? It's fortunate that the MCU created for fans the opportunity of the development of these characters now, and the mutants will be developed in the MCU and respectfully in the right way, in the nice way, a nicer way. Not that these movies were bad for se, but they were incoherent sometimes. But in defense of these movies, the comics of the X-Men are also incoherent. There are too many timelines, too many stories that happens in the same time with the same characters that doesn't make sense. For example, one thing that people always come to attention, always call attention, is that in the X-Men Days of Future Past, the Bolivar Trask character is played by I forgot his name. That the little guy that plays him, and in the I believe in the Last Stand, Works 2. I think it's the Last Stand. Is played by Bill Duke. It's a huge black guy. It doesn't make sense. And also the appearance of a young teenager Jean Grey in the Last Stand in a year, and after another young Jean Grey appear in X Men Apocalypse, and in the Dark Phoenix, that's the last movie that were produced with the X Men franchise with the name X Men. There's another Jean Grey child it's, it's strange, it's crazy, but the X Men Apocalypse serves also to introduce the the presence in the background of the character uh, Mr. Sinister, the Nathaniel SX, with his corporation that manipulates genes and mutants over the history. Who read or saw the comics know about the presence of Nathaniel SX. In the post-credits scene, it appears a briefcase with the name XX Corporation. That's something that's not developed, but it serves to the Deadpool movie, to Logan movie, and to Mutants movie. New Mutants movie. So, uh, what happens is that the Deadpool movie came after the failure of X Men Apocalypse, and was a refreshment in the Mutants franchise of Fox, Fox Mutant franchise, with the for breaking, the irony, the humor that Ryan Reynolds and the character Deadpool brought to the movie. He takes the blood of Wolverine that was collected in this movie. You can see in the end of this movie, in the post-credit scene, that the blood of Wolverine is taken and put in the briefcase. And in this movie, Deadpool, his blood is inserted in Wade Wilson, so it develops his cure factor. So he becomes Deadpool. It's a very good movie. It's very funny. Afterwards, with the R-rated movie success of this Deadpool, they greenlighted the Logan movie. It is considered the best Wolverine movie that was made, which is in the timeline the last one. And uh, sorry for the spoiler, but in this movie, Logan and Professor Xavier both dies. But in the end, the Logan's daughter, or clone, X-23, she becomes the face of the hope for the future for the mutants in this micro universe, Fox micro universe. It's a very good movie. It's R-rated. It's very violent, but it's great. It's a great movie. Deadpool 2 was produced right after, in 2018. Again, Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds play with Marvel, with Fox, with X-Men, with everything. There's a joke when he's walking around the X-Men mansion and complains that it's the empty. There's nobody there. That the success of the first movie should have uh, given him the the presence of more X-Men, and not just two or three. Yeah? And it's in a funny way the cast of X-Men Apocalypse, Professor Xavier, Beast, I think Quicksilver, and Storm. I think that, well, Nightcrawler too. I'm sure that Mystique wasn't there. Appears in the door very quickly, but it's very funny, very funny. And he plays with the actor, Josh Brolin, that plays Cable, which is a character, very complicated character. He's the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey, and of Jean Grey, a clone Jean Grey in the future that travels through time to do something. Yeah, it's very, but they simplify the character for the movie, which is very common because the movies, Hollywood, has to put the movies in the way that all audience can watch and not depend on references. But nowadays the fans command the show, and we ask as fans that they respect more the source material. That's what hopefully the MCU do with mutants from now on. And so Ryan Reynolds play with the with the character of Josh Brolin, calling in the movie. The he's playing the movie the character Cable, but Deadpool calls him Thanos. That he's the character of Josh Brolin in the MCU. That's very funny. So finally, in X-Men Dark Phoenix, it's a movie that made like in the closing doors of Fox after it was sold to Disney. So I think the money was already given. They have to make that's the feeling that we have watching the movie. The actors seems to not be very happy of doing, but it's a okay movie. You can watch, but it's strange to have the Dark Phoenix being again a character events sorry, an event that is used so poorly in the movies. In the comics, the Phoenix is the cosmic being that enters Jean Grey's body, and she has the power to absorb that, but she can control it. But there's no aliens expecting to get Phoenix power. That's not okay. That was weird. I believe the character of Jessica Chastain in the movie, I don't remember the name, is to be like a mirror for Emma, the White Queen of the Hell Club, that was already dead. In the timeline of this X-Men, she was killed before, between first class. She's here in first class, and off camera she's killed and mentioned, just mentioned in the Days of Future Past. So since in the original Phoenix story there was the White Queen, I wish I could remember the name. Emma alguma coisa. Emma something. Emma something. Because the character of Jessica Chastain seems seems visually with uh, the White Queen, but it's not just Brandon alien that wanted the Phoenix power. So the movie was a failure, it was a flop, and it was finished. There was no intention of continuing, I think, because Disney had already bought Fox, and they were planning to do a reboot of mutants in the MCU. That's obvious. That's the plan. Maybe they use this universe in sort of way, like they use the other Spider-Mans in the Spider-Way No Way Home, or in the multiverse somehow, like the appearance of Sir uh, Patrick Stewart in the movie Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, that he appears as Professor Xavier, like a reference, homage of these movies. I think, I don't know. It's a way to appeal to fans, like people that know one thing and another. You can't forget. The last movie that was produced was New Mutants. Here is in Portuguese, Os Novos Mutantes. New Mutants. New Mutants, which is a movie that calls for the story of young mutants that are trained uh, to be new X-Men. But in this case, it was like the more like trained to be weapons for the SX Corporation. Uh, it's a okay movie. There's good effects, good performances. But then again, it was just the closing doors of Fox over mutants. And here there is a timeline of these movies, which is very interesting. Interesting. Oh, I hope with training my English improves doing these videos. Uh, in the timeline, the first movie is in 1962 of X-Men First Class. From then will be developed the story of X-Men Origins, 1979. Since Wolverine has a long life, in this movie is revealed that he's born in the in the middle of 1800, 1800s, and fought a lot of wars over the story, the history of this history. I'm sorry, in Portuguese we don't have two words for story that are made up and history that is only facts. So you have just one word. So sorry. And after the X-Men Origins, he gets his mind wiped, and is in this period of 15 years. No, it's more like 79, 2004, 25 years. 25 years. It happens the events of the first and second X-Men. You see 2004, but the movies were made in 2000 and 2002. Then there's a little gap for last stand. Then 7 years later, the Wolverine with Wolverine carrying the guilt, and then there is the uh, X-Men Days of Future Past. As I said, from the Wolverine to Days of Future Past, the Wolverine there's the end scene, yeah, the post-credit scene where he's the cliffhanger for Days of Future Past. So there is 10 years of war, destruction of mutants, the ascending of the Sentinels, so on. So there is the time travel. Time travel always fix everything. So here he backs they back to 73, creating a new 2023 where everybody's alive, there's no war, etc. From this 73 with a new timeline, there's more 10 years, and Apocalypse happens in 83, then more 10 years, 9 years. There is the Dark Phoenix, and in between the 90s and the 2016 Deadpool, there is the place at the time when happens the New Mutants, where the mutants are caught for experiments for by the Access Corporation, which is referred as a flash forward to the Logan movie when they continue to do experiments with children with uh, mutant DNA, which creates X-23, the character that is the daughter of Logan. Deadpool 2 are movies that happen in the our period. It's like contemporary movies. It's, while the others are placed in the past or in the future, these these two are placed in the time we're living. Então, the time we're living, in 2018, the mutants are already seen, recognized, and feared. Some are heroes, some are villains. There's special prison for mutants, etc. And also there is uh, uh, the work of the XS Corporation creating super soldiers, super slaves, like the attempt of Deadpool, and also running the orphanage where happens part of the story of Deadpool 2. And finally, the Logan movie, where he's very old, 2029, he passes in the future, a far future, that were developed after the new 2023. Então, the new 2023, the mutants are alive, the school are okay, but sometime after there was some kind of incident with Professor Xavier, or seemed to be. In the movie, is not clear. He made something with his mind and killed a lot of mutants. Remaining a few, Logan and him and Professor Xavier flees to the border of Mexico, or to Mexico, actually, to Mexico. And there they expect to raise money to get away somewhere, I don't know. When the new mutants, the young mutants that are developed by the experiments of Access Corporation, uh, make appear the X-23. That's something that someone, a young woman or young lady, teenager, that returns to the hope about the survival of mutants. So I think in the end, the Fox developed some good movies, some bad movies. They didn't have what the MCU has. That is some kind of core of storytellers that knows that they live in the same universe and try to develop some kind of sense or coherent sense about the characters and the stories and the link between one and another. But if if you try hard, you can make some sense with this timeline and discovers that is a interesting story about these people that are different and need they want to live in peace in the world. But of course, it's fantasy, it's fiction, so it doesn't make sense that someone, a group of people born with a problem with a different trend in their gene, but each one has a different power. It doesn't make much sense. Supposedly they should have the same ability. I don't know, something like that. But then again, it's a creation fantasy of people in the 60s that want to make a stand about the civil rights and use that as a fiction history that make money for them. So that's for now. I hope you enjoy. Subscribe the channels and hit the bell to get notified and comments. And please forgive my English. Getting back my practice about it. So in time I will improve this. And also because right next to me there is people make a lot of noise. So I hope you forgive me and keep watching our channels. Bye.